Hello and welcome to our first Write for Animation live here on YouTube. It is so great to be here. We've just come back from Animationist Film Festival and Lightbox Expo. It was an amazing experience. And we have some great questions coming from you. And some of them have been collected before. And then I'll keep an eye on the chat in case some of you can actually connect live and we can answer some of them directly. So let's get started with the first question from Jessica. And she asks, what's the best way to get your foot in the door as an animation screenwriter, especially if you're not from an animation background? I think that is a great question. And I've been in that situation as well, because many of us maybe were not artists that have a background in visual arts, drawing, and or storyboarding. And so sometimes we ask ourselves, how can you get into an animation studio and get your foot in the door? So first of all, that is the goal. To get your foot in the door is the main thing that you should strive for, because most animation studios can give you opportunities once you're part of the team. And animation is such a collaborative medium that it allows most of us to be able to be exposed to many different departments, and then get to collaborate with many artists, and then you'll get an opportunity also as a storyteller and a screenwriter. You can be part of the story team. Story is it's very broad. Everybody's working towards creating the best possible story, and so is not such a hard line between the writers and the rest of the team as it is in live action, for example. And so the best way to get in a studio is to find an entry-level position. But let me take a step back. So the question was how to get into into an animation studio, how to get your foot in the door. So I'm gonna use an analogy of the door and the window. So what is the standard way for a writer to get to write, let's say, a feature film for a big studio? Think Disney or Pixar or DreamWorks. Usually you have to be selected among the writers that could be participating in the actual writing, the written by credit that writers get. And that is a very tough goal to reach, because at any given studio there are usually just a few projects that are being developed at the same time, and for those projects you usually have a couple of writers. Especially if you're starting out, it's very unlikely that a studio will give you an opportunity as one of the main writers for these films that are you're talking about millions and millions of dollars, and that you want to have someone that has proven to be able to work in a professional environment with a bunch of credits already. And so if you're starting out, that's probably an unlikely goal to have from the beginning, because what happens is that you build your portfolio of writing samples, and then maybe submit your samples and scripts to festivals, and then maybe you selected and win some of these competitions and festivals. You share your scripts until you get an agent, and once you have an agent, they are the people that can submit your stuff to an animation studio. And your stuff, once you have representation, gets sent to the development department, and usually there's it's not just it's not like an inbox where they just get a bunch of scripts from people they don't know. It's usually a relationship between the agent, or maybe they participate in a festival like Sundance, and they they see some of your work, and it's a very long process that it's also very, very difficult. Just statistically, if they think about the number of films that get produced and also the number of agents and scripts that are submitted to the studio. Now, the best way, and this is the door, let's say that the regular, professional, typical way to get into a studio. And the window, if you ask directors and writers and story artists how they got into the studio, maybe a studio that you'd like to be working at, usually is not through the door. It's usually through one of the many windows. And by a window, I mean some other area where you get your foot in the door, and then you're able to grow within the studio and get noticed, and showcase how passionate you are about the medium, how proactive you are when there's something that needs to be solved or things that you can help with, and so on. So the and those can be entry-level jobs. Those are it could be maybe not directly related to art if you're not an artist. It could be a production coordinator, a script coordinator, assistant, PA. There are many entry-level jobs that can allow you then to showcase and your abilities. And once you're inside, the best thing you can do is have your own projects. Ask people to maybe watch your stuff or read your script, or maybe you start getting to know other people at the studio. You create something together. You have a lot of coffees with people, and try to chat about what could be of value at the company, how some of you can create something, being a short film, being a children's book, being a graphic novel, or something that shows that you have what it takes to create a story, to be able to express a voice. Most of these studios are looking for new voices, somebody has a perspective, somebody that's proactive, somebody that knows how to be professional, that doesn't take things too personally, who's able to be humble and receive notes and things like that. And so, and plus, once you're inside, you're going to absorb a lot. You'll see some mistakes being made. You'll see how the stories develop throughout the pipeline, and you become savior. So if your goal has been, I want to be selected as the sole writer for the next big, I don't know, Disney film, well, maybe that's not, something that you can achieve on a straight path. It's not an A to Z situation where you can, just follow the path and you'll get there. And so that is what I advise you. I would recommend you do to get into a studio. And the other thing that you can do is to start sharing things and creating outside of the studio, especially to put yourself out there, to create a short film and put it out there. And for writers in animation specifically, I really think that having a complete portfolio of written material is good. It's good, but it's even better if you can also show something visual and pair up with maybe some story artists, and you create an animatic together. That animatic, you can put it on YouTube, and then everybody has access to that. And a few recommendations on doing that: try to create something that's personal, so that you can tell the story behind the story, and also try to keep it short. If you're emailing a lot of busy people that could open doors for you, they're usually under a tight schedule, especially if they're in production or if they're already working on one of these studios that you want to approach. Then try to make things simple for them to notice your work. And of course, if you create a short film that goes to festivals, then it's going to be much easier to get noticed. And that's usually how many people are able to grow. And also, once you're within a studio, you can also grow from there. We had on Write for Animation on the channel, you can you'll find an interview with the director of Starling, Mitra Shahidi. She is still working at Pixar, and while she's at the studio, she also developed this amazing short film that then went on and won many festivals. And so that's a great way to to also I think the bottom line is you don't wait for opportunities to come your way. You create your opportunities. If you are a storyteller, you cannot stay without telling story. You cannot rest without telling stories. So let's give a look at the if we have any questions. Um, so let's see. I hope it wasn't late. Can an animator be the one who has the story and directs the thing? Well, absolutely. If you're an animator, you need to think about the scene, where are you coming from story wise, and where are the characters at, and so anyone in animation is always developing storytelling skills. So never see yourself as I'm just an animator, unless that's your thing and you really um, don't want to get involved with story. But if you're animating, you're telling the story. Even the smallest reaction, the way you animate the moment, it's all based on the story. If you're a story artist, that of course you're a writer, of course you're a storyteller, and you also are a director. In my opinion, I think that you have to pick the shot. So there's also some cinematography and direction of the way this is going to be shot, and also you're working with the pace. You're thinking in terms of the timing of the moment, so you're also editing. So anyone can become a director and a writer, especially in animation, because you get to collaborate with other people that help you create something that's even better compared to anything you could do on your own. Mm. Let's see. Do you know if the masterclass you did with Kristen, there's a Lightbox Expo, will be uploaded online? It's very likely that it will be uploaded, and we also, Lightbox Expo had their crew there. We also have our crew, and next week I'll text people from Lightbox to understand exactly how that is going to work. We also need to check if we can use some of the shots in the presentation, because DreamWorks asked us not to share those. Maybe we'll be able to share them once the Blu-ray is out that has the behind the scenes. And so I'll check that with DreamWorks and Lightbox. But of course, we want to share that, and if not the entire thing, at least some moments, because that I think they shared like very, very great advice that we want to share with many of you. So we have another question from L, and they ask, is it better to submit to festivals with a finished script, or are pitch competitions worth applying for too? Well, I think that, with many of these situations, the answer might be yes. And what I mean by that is yes to both. You can do both. It's if you have to pick, and then it's not easy. But if you have a finished script, go for it. But I always think that we have to pitch and move a project forward with whatever we have at the moment, because there's always something more that you can have. For example, you could have, maybe you have what is the most basic thing, element of a project. You can have the idea. Maybe you just have idea. Okay, you have the idea, and maybe you have a bunch of ideas, and you write them down, in on your notes, and you have a folder, whatever. If you translate those ideas into log lines, we have a video on the YouTube channel on how to create a wonderful log line, which is a log line is the entire concept of your story condensed in one or two phrases. And there are some good ways to, catch the attention of the reader, and capture the essence of what the project is going to be in a couple of sentences. So if you just have that, well, go pitch with that. And so you can tell friends, you can about your log lines, you can post it online. We can, we do have another video about on how to create a one pager, by the way. And you follow the instructions on the video. We even have a template, and you create that, and then you pitch with that. You have a script, then you submit to those festivals. You have a pitch deck and you don't have the script, well, maybe you go to these other pitch festivals. Pitch competitions is almost never about the price itself. It's about the people you connect with. It's about the deadline. All these competitions, they give you a deadline, and the deadline is one of the best gifts that we can receive as writers. It's it's a blessing, because it pushes you to finish and to deliver. Otherwise, a story can always be better, and it's so easy to keep them in a folder on our computer. And so if you have to pick, I would go with maybe festivals for a finished script, but I wouldn't see it that way, because you'll also get to practice. It's not the same to record yourself, or do it in front of the mirror, or doing it with a friend, or going to some of these pitch fests and meetings. Be aware of something. Sometimes in festivals, the person on the other side, let's say you have, I don't know, a big producer from Lucasfilm, or a big studio, and they participate and they listen to pitches. It's not always the case that they're actually looking for a project, and so be aware of that, because sometimes you can get very excited, you get some feedback, and you think, oh no, I'm gonna sell this show to Netflix or Disney. And sometimes that is not the case, because from the very beginning they're not in a position to get to produce a pitch that they listen to in a festival. It depends on it varies a lot. It depends on the context. But what's very valuable is that they still are able to give you amazing feedback on an idea. You can immediately see if your story resonates, and also it puts you under pressure to be prepared and pitch to a professional executive. And what you receive, it's much more valuable than having the award or be number one in the final results. Then there are some festivals that can actually bring exposure to you. Definitely Nichols Fellowship and Big Break from the guys over at Final Draft and Screencraft, and Coverfly, and there was one more, and Sundance, of course. And for sure there are more. If you know of some of them, you can put them in the chat as well. So let's go to the next question. Is making characters a good start? That's a good one. I imagine that the question is about starting with a character. And in the past, I would say couple of years, especially this past year, I've been thinking a lot about the idea of character ideas instead of story ideas, and the fact that story is character, character is story. And because of the many screenwriting books, which are great, but sometimes we get to learn the structure first. And so we read the book and we immediately think about a story. Usually we think about a story as an idea. We never think, or an idea connected to a character, something that happens to a character. But the common what if question, what if this happens? And I've been thinking about, what if this person or character exists instead of what if an event happens? And so that puts you in a completely different mindset, and pushes you toward what's really most important in storytelling, which is the character, your main character. And it was very interesting, and I cannot wait to expand on that conversation. When we were at Lightbox Expo, we had a panel with John Masker, Jorge Gutierrez, and Vicky Jensen. And I loved Vicky Jensen's perspective on the protagonist. She shared something, if I recall correctly, she said, I don't like to use the words protagonist and antagonist. I think about my main character. And so thinking about a main character that should be so entertaining and compelling and interesting and intriguing that you could put them almost anywhere. And in another interview we had with Domi Shi, she was sharing about this idea. I think she received that from Andrew Stanton, of thinking about your character trapped in an elevator. What would they do? Even if they're confined in a space, they should be compelling and interesting. And so I think that is a great idea to start from character. So Ulster, the radio demon, uh, that's a great start. Start with your characters and think about, who they are, what makes them interesting. I have on my monitor a post-it with these questions, and who wants what happens if they don't get it, why now, why should we care, why do we want to see this, how to subvert expectations. And this is a mix of questions from David Mamet and Jorge Gutierrez. And during our latest panel at Lightbox, he was sharing that he also asks himself about a character, what would they die for, what would they sacrifice for, and also what are they, why, how do you say it in English, is it how, what do they feel guilty about, I guess. And so this relationship between what's something they stand for, what they would think about those things before thinking about what events can happen in the story. And I think that is the best way, and I've been thinking a lot about that. And maybe we'll create some videos because I'm still thinking about how can you translate that in a way where, screenwriting books, they teach you those story beats. What how can we turn these into questions related to the characters? There's a great book called Creating Character Arcs that kind of, I think it's the best book in terms of starting from the character. So let's go to the next question from Ichley AMR Adele. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but they say, if I am in a studio and there is a project they want to work in and ask for assistance, but personally I don't want to work on the topic, so can I decline and not make it, or this is a must to do? Okay, well, it's not an easy question because it depends on the studio. And I've heard about situations where some people get reassigned to a different project because they didn't resonate with a specific project. If the studio has multiple projects, if the studio only has one project, has to do a lot with your contract, your also what are the different things that you can do. And also I think that if you are in a position where you're so versatile, you can they have an alternative and you can pick and choose. Of course, you have a little more freedom. If it becomes something maybe personal, that there's a very specific reason why I don't know, you don't want to participate in a project, then I mean, it depends on the situation, I guess. I've heard about someone who went to HR to discuss relocation because she didn't want to participate in a specific project. And yeah, it depends on the studio. Can you possibly, this is from live from 5B4, can you possibly submit animatics to festivals? Some festivals, it depends on the festival. I would say 90% of festivals don't allow an animatic. I would put that animatic out there, just put it on YouTube and send it personally to people. If you think of the animatic as a way to sell an idea and to push forward a project, especially if it's a short film or a pilot. And some festivals, they allow you to submit a work in progress and then update it before the festival, the latest deadline. Some other festival can even show an almost finished project, and then maybe you're redoing the score or tweaking some things or polishing up some other elements. I would say always apply, always go for it, always try to work with what you have. And it depends a lot on the goal. If it's something you want to keep it to yourself until there's a teaser or there's a pilot, or It's something that maybe has to do with a plan to sell it, and so you don't want to give away the entire project before. But if it's a short film for a sample or something that you control completely, I would say just put it out there. Put it out there, because people are too protective of the thing of a project, and usually that's not a good strategy. Sometimes you also need to line up the festival run so that you think, okay, maybe you have Cannes, and then you want to try, there's some very important festivals, Berlin and Venice, and that some of them, I'm not an expert on all this, but some of them require an exclusivity for you to submit. So you should have not shown the project somewhere else or in other festivals, and most festivals don't have that rule. And then you might want to, if that's the case, you want to try shoot for one of these big ones. Then maybe you want to wait until you have the finished project, and then calculate exactly how your festival run will go. So maybe now that I think about it, we should have someone come to the channel to talk about this, and we have some great connections that could tell us a little more about how to manage a festival run. So let's go to the next question. And how can I go to the Lightbox Expo? And is this place in multiple places if a person is from a completely different country? Lightbox Expo happens in October in Pasadena, California, which is right in the Los Angeles area. And um, I don't think they have the intention to relocate that. It's only one location, and it's an amazing event. I see people traveling from Europe, traveling from Asia, and traveling from all around the world, and it's totally worth it. So it's the same way everybody goes to France for NEC. I really recommend saving up money to go to one of these festivals, because it's an amazing experience. And in my experience has been that it pays itself. It might take some time, but if you're serious about, or you make the connections that can give you a job, you can find your partner to create something. You can something like being there, being inspired by all these talks. And the other thing I want to say is that, and you can share where you're from if you're still here, and you want to share, is that sometimes we think that if we don't go to NEC or Lightbox or some specific big festivals, then there's nothing else. You cannot afford it at the moment. Maybe you live far away. Go to what's local as well. It's super important, because for example, I'm from Italy, and there's an amazing festival in Italy, in Turin, the View Conference, and they bring in people from all around the world, people from the top studios, and it's a big festival, but it's not as big as Annecy. And that is an advantage, or a Lightbox. It's an advantage as well, because you end up going to lunch maybe with one of your heroes from the animation industry. You have more time to interact with people in a more intimate setting. This year was my first year at the Animation is Film Festival, and I loved it, because it was much. It's a smaller festival. It's a new festival, and so you get to really interact with everybody that's there. And so there are pros and cons to local events as well. And also, I encourage you to connect with your local community. We always see, the grass is greener on the other side. We think we have to go to Hollywood. We think we have to go to these big cities where there's much more happening. And you'll be surprised by how much you can achieve where you are. And you can, if you create something and put it out there, something with a small crew, with your friends, and you pour your heart into a story. Now the stage is global. You put it on YouTube, and then it can really be seen everywhere. And let's say you really all the research possible, and you still cannot find a community or a festival or an event that's nearby, well, why don't you create something? Why don't you create maybe a drawing or writing club, or you maybe even an event of who knows? It's very interesting what can happen when you start, trying to connect with others. I bet that in your area there are a few other people that maybe they also feel isolated, and they think that there's nothing out there, and if you get together, now there is something. So um, you're from Egypt, and truly Italy is lovely. Yeah, I have never been to Egypt, and I think Egypt is one of the countries I would love to visit as well. And I think you can find or create something in Egypt. Also, I think this is a good moment to share about the Write for Animation Academy. This is our monthly membership where we get together, we write together, we share our scripts. We have feedback Fridays. We have daily writing sessions where we write we write twice a day, every single day from Monday through Friday. And that's another alternative. It could be the Write for Animation Academy, but it could be any online community or Discord groups about animation, and that's a good way to interact as well. But I really, sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I think it's super important to find something local, and you put something out of social media. Like anyone else from Egypt that would like to get in touch, and maybe you start by chatting online, and then you get to something more. So let's go to the next question. Lightbox Expo. If I want to make a lot of stories and unfortunately have the idea and the plot but not have the events or scenes, what should I do? Okay, that's a good question as well. So you have the idea of the plot but not having the events or scenes. So always think in terms of beginning, middle, and end. And some of you might think, oh, that's too structural, or maybe it's a formula, but that's much more than that. That's how we experience the film. You start watching a film, and then you keep watching the film, and at some point the film ends. And so all this structure doesn't come from Hollywood, not even from Aristotle or Joseph Campbell or screenwriting books. It's just the filmmaking, the audience experience. You have a medium that works in time. It's not just an experience that's ongoing. It's not a statue that you can observe and it's static. It moves and evolves through time. And then you start thinking about, okay, do I want the best, the more exciting, the more emotional thing to happen in the first, I don't know, in the first half, or would you like to have that at the end? Well, I think at the end is better because it's a better experience for the audience, to build towards something, and then you get to completion. This is just to help you understand that these are what we learn in narrative has to do with the experience of going to watch a film. Of course, there are very different ways to approach the structure, but in general terms, usually you want to be able to understand what's going on. So that's why in the first act you introduce the character, you introduce the world, you have an idea of the tone. Is this going to be an adventure? Is it going to be a drama, a slice of life film? What kind of what am I getting into? And then you focus again on the character. Who is this person? If you're usually you can divide protagonists in two kind of protagonists. Most films are about a main character that learns something, and if you want somebody to learn something, you want them to be at the opposite side when they start the adventure. So you want to start with them as far away as possible from the truth that they're going to discover. And another kind of protagonist is a protagonist that some call an angel that comes to Earth, or a flat character arc. And I think Meglefov had a different. I don't remember how she calls this kind of protagonist, but it's basically someone who they don't change, but he or she changes the world around them. And so they are an agent of change. They embody the truth that the world needs to discover. So try to understand if your idea is, you know, pushing you towards one of or the other. So, and it can change, you know, as you explore this character, you might decide to change things. Don't be afraid to change and explore a different version. And then once you understand what they need to learn, then the story should help them, you know, it should help them pushing the character. And you want to, you know, you want to push the character and bring them towards this truth that they're going to discover. And you have to be brutal with your character. Think about, okay, if somebody has this misbelief, they believe this something that is actually not true, and is making their life miserable, but they're in their comfort zone. What can happen? What is the worst thing that can happen that will push them out of the comfort zone into an adventure that leads them to discover the truth? And so then you start thinking, okay, what kind of character can embody that truth? Or it can be the other way around. Maybe you can think about the character first, and then you can try to think, okay, what is you know, let's say your character is a turtle. Okay, maybe it's a turtle. Maybe they always hide, and they always try to, you know, put a barrier between them and the rest of the world. And then maybe you think, okay, why is that? Maybe they've been scarred in the past, and something happened that makes them not trust others, and always retreat. I don't know, I'm making this up on the fly, but it's the idea of trying to embody a concept, an idea, into a character. And then you start playing with the story material. And then we have a lot of videos on the YouTube channel. If you're new here, go through some of the videos about structure, about character development, and I'm sure it will help you, you know, creating those moments in the story that you're missing. Okay, so let's go. One sec. If I want to write direct, this is from Super Nugget 69. If I want to write direct, should I learn to animate to get my foot in the door, show proof of concept, or should I just focus on writing? Thanks in advance. It's a great question. Again, sometimes the answer is yes. It's not like you have to pick. You can do both. But you don't need to be an animator to be a writer. If you're an animator, you know, for a movie, you have many animators and one or two or just a bunch of writers. So again, if you think long term, you might think, okay, if I have a more technical skill, that also can be a good way to be hired and pay the bills. And animating, you know, you can animate for commercials, you can animate for video games. There's a lot of you know, there's more demand for a technical skill compared to writers, because you know, again, one project, just one or few writers, many animators, you know. And also it's your way into a studio, and it's your way into different stories, and it's your way into connections. I cannot animate. I would have to start from scratch. I know the principles. It's good to learn the basics, and so that you can communicate, you can understand how the animation is also telling the story, how, you know, you can tell so much with expressions, the movement, reactions, and you don't have to put everything into writing. Especially, you don't have to put everything in dialogue. You know, a character can tell the audience way more with expression or action than they can do it with words. So if you love animation, I would do that, but it's not required. Let's go to Okay, we have a thank you. If I want to make a lot of stories and unfortunately have, okay, that's we answered that already. Is the Lightbox Expo always open, and how much is the ticket to get there? Honestly, because I have kept hearing it and wish to go there, and thank you for answering our questions. Well, go to, I think that the website is lightboxexpo.com, and it's only once a year, and I don't know if you can find the price of the tickets, and it's worth it. That's what I can tell you. I don't remember the exact pricing. You can see the some recaps from this year, and then it's going to take a while for them to announce next year. But I cannot wait. We just left, and I would love to have 1 month of Lightbox Expo. It's really amazing. And okay, so let's go to the next one. Roughly what time of day do you do the writing sessions? So because we have people in the Write for Animation Academy that come from all over the world, we have people from China, the US, Italy, Mexico, Colombia. Really, it varied, and we are all on different time zones. We decided to pick to write twice a day, actually sit here and write with you, together with you, for 1 hour at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and then later at 6 p.m. Actually in 20 minutes. So we'll end our live before that, and in about 20 minutes we have our second session of the day. So if you're in Europe or Asia or in America, you are able to to join the session. And what we do in the sessions is we start by opening up, picking one of these cards, and this is a deck of cards created by John August, a great screenwriter who has, I think it's the most successful and one of the best podcasts about screenwriting called Script Notes. Many of you probably know that, and I really recommend listening to that podcast. And they created this deck of cards that help you when you're stuck as a writer. And so every day in every session, we start with one of these cards, and let's read just one of them. For example, we have this that says, "That was lucky. Let your hero succeed through pure dumb luck. Just make sure the pendulum swings both ways." And then there are some more prompts in the back. So we read this, and then we are all together on Zoom, and we mute ourselves, and we write for 1 hour. And then after the session, we regroup just to share how the session went. And I always encourage people not to judge the session on how it went in terms of the result, but more on the fact that if you participated, you showed up. And even if that day maybe was not particularly, productive, that will pay off later. And it's great to see all the people in the academy growing their portfolio and starting to get results. Because if there is a secret to animation writing, is consistency. If you write consistently, and we have this, you can download our Write Everyday Challenge that you can download and print from our website, from writeforanimation.com. You can see a place that says free stuff, and you can download these and many other templates. The idea is to write consistently. Mark your X. If you miss one day, I put a sad face, and then you reward yourself with something you love. And in this case, I went to see a film concert that I really wanted to see, and you write the title of the project, and you write a day, even when you don't feel like writing, and then things will start to happen. Your portfolio will start to expand, and you will become a better writer. And so that's what we do every day, and that's just one of the many benefits you get when you're in the Write for Animation Academy. And but it's one of the most important, I think, even if it's not the shiny thing that people sign up for, because practice is the most important thing you can do. Anyway, let's go to the next question. And speaking of the Write for Animation Academy, this is a question from Smash Guy. He's part of the academy, and in your experience, what is what part of a story is the most difficult to figure out, and how do you go about that specific step? And so let's start by defining what are the common steps that a writer takes in order to get to a finished script. And I'm going to compress this because I want to be able to get to many questions, but I think it's important to understand the entire journey before, talking about what is the hardest. So you have an idea, and we've been talking about the concept of character ideas, and then not only story ideas, in terms of maybe you think about a character and not an event or something that happens in a story, and you think about this character, you start exploring, what could they express, what could they get into, what could be, a world that's interesting. An idea, there's not a rule. You have to start with the idea, you need to start with the world, you need to start with the character. Characters are the most important thing in a story, but you might think about something cool, or you read a news, or you see a painting or something that propels you, it pushes you, it encourages you. There's something that you want to write about, that you want to create a story around that element. And so you start shaping an idea, and then at some point you'll jot down all the ideas that you have. What sometimes I do is I take a piece of paper, I circle the main concept of the character, and I start writing random words with no filter around. And so anything that comes to mind, it could be the dumbest thing, I write it down. And then, you start shaping something that can become little by little, it starts looking like a story, and so a story is, again, it's in time, and so you need to have a series of actions. What I usually do at that point is that I write with on index cards, and so these are little cards that I use to write a story beat, and then I piece them together on this board, and where this is a short film that I'm writing. Yes, and then I usually do one line for the first act, 2 lines for the second act, and 1 line for the third act, and that is where I spend most time in the writing. I believe that writing, at least for me, is 80% creation of the story and organizing the story material and the story beats, and 20% actual typing on Final Draft for the actual script. If you jump to writing the script too early, then you're going to make your life much harder. And so at any given moment, I have an outline that's basically a Word document where you just write the story in prose. And then I work a lot with the cards. This is an entire film that I tape it, so this is the film, and I keep it there if I want to re-explore or rewrite. And it's usually 40 cards, 10 for the first act, 20 for the second act, and another 10 for the third act. And the hardest part, I think, in the process is figuring out the second act, and the second most, the second hardest part is to be able to be confident about the empathy towards your main character. So the idea that people are engaged with your protagonist, because that is, if they're not engaged with the protagonist, if they don't care about the main character, then nothing else matters. And that is the most important thing that you need to achieve, because you can have a wonderful story, an incredible ending, you can have the most beautiful world. If you don't care for the main character, you don't care about the film. And so that is I think the hardest part, is the second act, and then making getting to that moment where you think, of course, I'm in. It doesn't mean that you like the character. Think about anti-heroes or you're not, you're not fond of what they're doing, but you're still intrigued by them. The characters, they need to be compelling and intriguing and mysterious, and it's sometimes you are completely against what they're doing, but you also want them to discover the truths that are missing, and feel for them. So we have a video with 10 elements that can help you create empathy for your characters. So let's go to the next one. This is from Hannah Heaven. I have a hard time writing my comic script. I need to get it done as quickly so I can do the storyboard, but it is almost impossible because I end up stuck or quickly burn out or bored. Okay, so being a comic book or a script for a film or anything creative, I completely understand that situation, and it's very painful. It's very, very hard to be in a situation where you feel burnout or you feel bored or you feel like you're completely stuck. So I think that there are 2 or 3 elements, because you want to get to the root of the problem instead of trying to learn tips and tricks on how to to push yourself to write. One problem, it could be that you don't have a where you know exactly how to organize your process so that you can get to the result that you want. Do that spidery thing where I circle, I do a circle, and I put a concept, and then I do, lines so it looks like a spider, where I write down all these words. I know that that is a step that is so easy and it's so simple that, I'm never stuck with that, because the idea is to write down the dumbest thing anything that comes to mind. I can say, okay, I want to tell a story about a frog. Then I write frog, and then I write pond, and I will write water, and I will write rain, and I will write insects, and I write I don't know, lack of water, or tornado, or anything that comes to mind. I could write tongue because they have a long tongue. Anything works. And the thing that this kind of exercises that sound very dumb, like that one, they're what saves us from writer's block usually. And then I know that after that moment, then I write an outline, and my first outline is going to be terrible. So I know that I'm going to write something that is, almost instinctual, and I'm going to write, and write. It's going to be awful. It's going to be something that is, I don't want to show that to anyone else. It's just for me. It's probably end up going into the trash, but it also helps me, not get stuck. And then I know that I'm going to work with cards. And so what I do there, I write down any scene that comes to mind. They're disconnected. Some scenes, they contradict each other. If I think that at any given moment that scene pertains to the broader, structure, then I put it there. If it contradicts anything that's on my cork board, or it doesn't make sense, I still keep it and write it down and put it on the side. And so, again, as you can see, there's a pattern of not judging what you're writing and what you're creating. And so, if you can sit down and write down what are the micro steps that will lead me to my complete the complete project, then you might want to organize that and think if you already have clarity. Because if you wanted to imagine you're writing a comic book and you start, drawing the first panel, that would be, extremely stressful, and because you have no idea, not even how many panels you need on the page, how many pages you need, and if you have an outline, if you have a list of the shots that you want per page, and if you have that, the dialogue lines and the character design, so write a list. It could be a lack of knowing the exact process. I might be totally wrong, but from what you shared, that could be it. The other thing is that the idea that the first version is going to be good, and that is one of the worst trap that we all we have. It's such a terrible gut feeling when you write something and you feel terrible because you read or see the first draft or anything, and it's so bad. It's really, really bad, and that stops many of you or many people from actually writing, because you think, well, then I don't have what it takes, because look at what I wrote is terrible. And so that is you think you don't have what it takes. And the only difference between the people we admire and us is the fact that they didn't stop. They embraced the element of growth, the element that of letting go of the first draft and writing, rewriting, and rewriting. So hopefully this helps you along the way. If you're completely burned out, think about what else is going on in your life, because sometimes you get to a point where it goes beyond the craft, and then you get into this vicious cycle where you feel bad because you're not advancing, and then you think you're not good enough. And then if you're not good enough in art, maybe you're not a good enough person. Maybe you should have listened to someone that told you to get a real job, and you start doubting your entire career, and plus personal things that can creep in, and maybe there's something else going on. So if you feel like you're feeling guilty, lacking motivation, and things like that, it's it could be even that you need professional help. You could be in a situation where the burnout is so heavy that maybe you're confusing something that is broader. And so it's very important to take care of yourself in that regard. So we have time for one more question, and looks like since a bunch of you connected, so I'm very happy about it. I had a few questions as a backup, but I see that you're submitting a lot of them. We'll do this more often, so even if it's just 2 or 3 of us. And Adele, and I love that you're submitting so many questions. Keep them coming, and maybe we'll do some quick videos to answer those later, like in a reel or a short here on YouTube. So let's go with LMA Productions. How do you make your story personal? Okay, pick the longest answer possible. I love that question. It's one of the most important things that you can do for your story. The more personal a story is, the more universal it will be. I really believe in this, because if it's personal, then you can tap into what makes it human, and that creating something that talks and speaks to what is the human experience, what is human nature, what are the things that we are afraid to talk about, what are the things that really move us. That is really what connects with the audience, and connects across culture, across time, and even with fantasy worlds. And now we really need to wrap this up, but the short answer is, try to connect with one element in the story that feels very personal. And even if you haven't experienced exactly what the character went through, find the closest thing. Let's say your story has to do with loss, and maybe luckily you don't have anyone in your family that died, and but maybe when you were little, your dog passed away, and you remember those elements. And so maybe you're thinking, okay, how was I feeling as a child when my pet died? And maybe that is the closest thing that my character is going through, if they're maybe going through loss. It could be the opposite, to be and on a more positive note. Maybe your story is about winning a championship, and maybe you won a medal when you were little, or you remember winning an art contest and how you were feeling, and you write down those feelings. And it's important to to tap into whatever is the most personal connection with the story. And even if it doesn't need to be autobiographical, it can be about something completely different, but then you find a way to connect it. And I encourage you to apply this to projects that are not originated by you as well. Every great writer always tries to find something that connects their personal experience to a story. So I really have to go because we have our for Animation Academy session, and you're welcome to explore everything we have to offer there. And these are the kind of questions that we answer. We have a space to answer questions, and we have our feedback Fridays. We have a script reading club. We have guest speakers. You can join from writeforanimation.com/academy, and so feel free to send me those questions that were left unanswered by DM or by email. It's Pietro@writeforanimation.com, and I'll eventually get to those or turn those into a reel or a video or a TikTok or anything in short form. So thank you for participating in our first Q&A, and this has been wonderful. And I hope to see you maybe next month. We'll do another one. Maybe if I can learn to talk and maybe need some water. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.